Joe Tessitore and the crew here, as we're all excited for UFC 300, many calling this the greatest UFC card in history. And of course, it comes on a week where combat sport is riding the wave of a total high. WrestleMania with this crowd right into UFC 300. So we have gathered WWE superstars connected to MMA. CM Punk, of course, a couple fights in UFC. Shayna fought Amanda Nunes, UFC fighter. Bobby, it goes without saying, your history in the sport of MMA, Bellator, and Strikeforce. And Big E. The moment you walk in here, you're grabbing the bout sheet. You are one of the biggest fans and aficionados.
I'm just a mark. I haven't fought, but I'm just a mark. A big fight mark.
All right. What do you say we get right into it? Alex Pereira, Jamahal Hill, highly anticipated light heavyweight title fight going down. CM Punk, what say you?
What jumps off the page to me is I hear criticism about, oh, this isn't a big enough main event for UFC 300, and I think people are absolutely insane. Obviously, I think people want John Jones. They want Stipe. They want a heavyweight title. But if you can't have the heavyweight title, what's the second best one? Light heavyweight title. And Alex Pereira, I think his record speaks for itself. The people he's fought in the UFC, the champions that he's beat, and Jamahal Hill. I'm interested to see how Jamahal responds from what we know as a potential career-ending
Achilles.
Tore his Achilles. Yeah. And he's coming right back in and he's fighting a monster.
A monster.
A monster.
I like when you say that because I like to watch Pereira. I like watching him on Instagram. I like his striking. His striking is very smooth, but he hits hard. And he's a scary person to fight. But Jamahal Hill is one of those guys I think is, like, people don't know how good he actually is. I think he's going to get tested by Alex Pereira. And if he beats him, I think he's going to be a huge star. I think Jamahal Hill is somebody that we don't know how good he could be. So this is a huge test for him.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, too, because light heavy's been in flux. You know, you had Yuri who had to abdicate because of injury. Jamahal had to abdicate because of injury. I think it's a great time. The division feels very wide open still to me. So I'm excited to see who's going to step up and solidify and hopefully go on a run. And I think Pereira has a great shot at going on a run here at 205.
I think it's interesting, too, because Jamahal Hill, obviously big KO power, but I don't know if people remember a month or so back when Pereira was asking to also be on the 301 card a month after 300. So is he maybe looking past Jamahal Hill a little bit and not, he's wanting to be on the Brazil card really bad. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think it's a really interesting matchup of styles as well with the different styles of striking.
Can you tell who was putting together notes before we got on? I'm getting my notes all set here, but that is the headline. And CM Punk, you bring up the fact of the card and the way it lays out with a main event, but from top to bottom, and guys, when you look at this balance sheet, I mean, where do you miss? I mean, it's like you got quality and you got quantity, and then you start to understand, Biggie, why people say greatest UFC card in history, because you got to be there from fight number one onward.
Yeah, the test where the curtain jerker is Cody Garbrandt and Figgy.
Right.
That's a main event anywhere else.
Yes.
That's what we're starting with. It's an incredible card. It really is.
I'm interested to see what the Vegas crowd does because they're notorious for showing up way late.
Right.
And these are all fights that you can't show up late for.
Yeah.
Like you said, Figgy and Garbrandt, Jim Miller, Bobby Green. I want to see that. That's a main event of a fight night, and it's the second fight of the night. Insane.
Well, let's put that out there. What is the fight? All right, we already got to the headliner, right? The title fight. But what is the fight on this card that you are most looking forward to? Bobby, I'll start with you, and you can go right around.
Ooh, man, I can't say just one because from a wrestling background, I love Bo Nickal. And I've heard big things about him. He's an American Top Team guy. And I talked to those guys down there. They said he's a real deal. So I don't know how far he can go, but of course, I don't know if he's getting tested really in this fight, but I think Bo Nickal is a tough one. But I'd like to see the Gaethje Holloway fight. That one is one that I keep going back and forth because Gaethje is a Colorado guy. And I lived in Colorado a long time, and I met Gaethje, and I like him. He's a super dude, but Max Holloway, same way. And both of those guys, I think both of those guys could be stars. If there was 2 weight classes, they would both be champions. But I don't know. I think that's the one that's crazy.
Yeah, the card is so stacked. But that's the one for me.
It is.
Max and Justin, and also the last time we saw Max move up to 55, he got to put on him a little bit. So that's what I'm interested to see. how Max holds up at 55.
He's looking so much bigger this time, though.
Yeah,
than he did
that's true. He
last
has
time.
had time
So he's had some time to
to
put
fill
weight
out.
on.
Yep. But Gaethje, to me, greatest action fighter of all time.
There's always that thing though when in combat sports, when you put on weight, that first fight sometimes it's not always there. It could be the conditioning, it could be the power. You settle into a weight class, so
It takes
obviously
time.
it takes time to settle into a weight class. What's the one for you that you circle, Punk?
I mean, literally just scanning it, I'm excited about the main event. Gaethje Holloway, I think, is the easy one that jumps off the page. And I think because they're both such fan favorites, it's hard to pick. You know, you want to see those guys fight people that it's easy to say, I don't like them. I want to see a Holloway beat this guy. Bo Nickal, just because he has such superstar potential. Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison. Can Kayla make the weight? Like, there's a lot of exciting questions going into that. Sadiq Youssef, Diego Lopez, absolutely insane. Jalen Turner, Renato Moicano. You'd think I'm getting paid to tell you to order the pay-per-view, but like I'm just such a fan of MMA. It's insane. Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. Like what?
Oh,
like,
that's a huge one. I want to
that's
see
a
that one also.
huge one. And
I wanna
like
see
you
that
talk
one.
about something that has like title fight implications. Like I know Shayna knows that's the one.
Yeah.
I think, like, obviously, as a fan of the women's fighting, I'm interested to see how Kayla Harrison does against someone like Holly Holm, who, obviously, being a part of Ronda Rousey's camp, I've spent a lot of time studying. And I mean, Holly's, you might say she's at an age where age is catching up to her, but Holly's style has always been very conducive to very aggressive people coming towards her, right? When you look at some of the fights she's had where they don't press the action, it's a little bit less dominating, but if they go at her, and Kayla is an aggressive fighter. And so it'll be interesting to see if Holly Holm still has that in her, and then to really put a test to Kayla. That's the one I'm gonna. I mean, obviously the easy answer, Gaethje Holloway, could possibly be.
But let's not take away, and Aljamain never gets respect. Right. And I think that's a great fight also. Aljamain, like we were talking before, I think Aljamain is great at every aspect of MMA. But he has a striker. He has a tough striker that he's going with Cattle. So that's a tough one also. A fun matchup is Jim Miller and Bobby Green. Boy, they're going to be throwing. That's going to be a good hype one.
Jim
that
Miller's
could be
old,
anywhere.
and he hasn't even lost
Old.
his step.
Quit saying old. No.
Ageless wonder, Jim Miller.
How old's Holly Holm?
Yes, but I said the same thing about her. So it'll be interesting to see her
that
age.
is an interesting thing. We're seeing that now. Like
Yeah.
we just saw it, the featherweight title fight. You know, we're seeing guys that once they hit 35, you know, things change. You know, and 35 is an age you maybe should possibly not start a fighting career. But I've never been.
Excuse me. Hold on.
Experience.
I did the same thing.
I just always want people to know that I'm the level. And I know. You know what I mean? I'm very self-aware.
You would not advise that. You were saying.
And you know, and so many questions, you know, about age. Is it time? You know, like, and you know, we're gonna find out. But that's why I really like the Jim Miller Bobby Green fight, because it's just like, you know what? It's just two old school dudes, and they're gonna get out there and they're gonna throw down.
By the way, the 215, 220 pound version fills out a suit much better.
Yeah.
not cutting and draining.
Yeah, I brought a couple of suits that where I was, you know, 170, and I went to put them on, and I was like, no, these got to get refitted.
You brought up Tsarukyan. He's a dog. And listen, you know, Vegas is so hot over this UFC 300. By the way, ESPN Plus pay-per-view on Saturday, April 13th. But he's a dog. Where else do you see a live dog here where you say, listen, there's an upset to be made when you look through this card?
I unfortunately, I don't think it's the Bo Nickal fight. I don't think that line is pretty wide for a reason.
We'll talk about him more in a moment. But where do you see a live dog here anywhere?
I'm going to throw it out as the main event. I think, like I said, Jamahal Hill. We don't know how good he is. Alex Pereira, we know he is a killer and he's scary. If Jamahal Hill goes out and knocks him out, which I don't see this fight going the distance. If Jamahal Hill knocks him out, we're all going to be talking about Jamahal Hill. Sure, 100%.
At UFC 200, Amanda Nunes emerged as a star. You get a big card like this, you get spotlight opportunities. There will be somebody who emerges from this as the next guy, the next star. Who do you think that could be?
I think it could be Kayla. I'm really intrigued to see how she handles the weight cut. But this is a new audience, I think. You know, for many people who haven't watched what she's done in PFL, It's an opportunity to see a grappling master now in the UFC. But, has she fought at 45? This is at 35. We've seen her at 55. That's a significant cut.
Yeah, especially for a woman. It's a lot harder for women to make weight.
Yeah.
What would she need to do? What would she need to do? Finish her in the first?
She might.
I mean,
I think that we underestimate the ability of grabbing the stick afterwards and putting it on, like highlighting what you did. And she's someone that does that. So it's like the perfect mix. It's just in the fight world, as opposed to anywhere else, we get to where it's like, yeah, the fight, but there also is that aspect of being able to be, Conor, Ronda, like it's been that, and that's a huge part of it. It's all sports entertainment.
right, sure.
And she's someone that if she comes out, puts it on a legend like Holly, grabs the stick, she could be the new hit.
I think Jamahal Hill is poised just like Kayla Harrison is, because I don't know if there's a lot of fights on this card, prelims, main card, that you could say if somebody won, it would be an upset. Nobody's going to be shocked if Gaethje beats Max Holloway, and vice versa. That's a pick'em. Oliveira Tsarukyan also. But obviously Cody Brundage is the biggest.
Well, that's the biggest dog.
Right, and I feel like maybe we're picking on him a little bit. He's got a chance. It just goes to show you how much superstar potential Bo Nickal already has. I really don't know. Calvin Kattar and Aljamain Sterling too. That one puts either guy right at the top of the list to fight Ilia Topuria. It's really hard to call what could possibly be an upset, but if you're asking me who could have superstar potential, it's Jamahal Hill.
All right, let's get into the Bo Nickal conversation. I want everybody's take here. All right, he's sitting here at 5-0. Obviously, was a NCAA champion at Penn State. He's tearing through this stage of his career as can't miss, rising blue chip prospect, heading towards title contendership as things go on. Where can it all go, Big E?
I think title. I think he's a future champion. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement when he gets into MMA because he's an incredible grappler. But the question is, how's he when he stands up? Mm-hmm. And seeing him finish guys with one punch has blown me away. Like seeing his poise, seeing the way he carries himself. I think he's a future champion.
Shayna?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who trained for a few years with an Olympian, there's something different about the level, just mentally, of an Olympic athlete. And I think that mentality, on top of the fact that I believe, and everyone argues, wrestling is by far the most important base that you can have in mixed martial arts, and he's already maybe the best in the entire UFC at that. The sky's the limit for that guy. Now, have we seen him tested against someone who can defend and punch him in the face and then see him on his back foot a little bit?
Right.
No, but maybe we won't ever see that. You know what I mean? Like his wrestling is that good, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's always that find out moment in combat sports, right, where you face extreme adversity. It's easy to be a front runner, right? Mike Tyson was that in his stages of his career, and then you sort of find out what he doesn't like. But there's always that moment. Where are you on Bo Nickal?
Bo Nickal's a guy, you watch him, 5-0. Nobody can touch him. The only person that can beat him at this level is probably himself. But I know how serious he takes this, and I know how he trains all aspects of it. But he's already masterclass at the best base for mixed martial arts. You see a guy like that, and I immediately think, well, who's the middleweight champion? Okay, what's the next middleweight title fight? Like, where is he at? And there's a big middleweight fight coming up to decide who the number one contender is. Bo Nickal wins this, I put him, front and center in Saudi Arabia for the number one contenders fight, just to spice things up a little bit.
Yeah. Good booking.
Yeah, correct.
I've already talked about Bo Nickal. I'm huge with Bo Nickal. I mean, coming from a wrestling background, everything that Shayna said, I agree with. Wrestling, I have a special place in my heart for wrestlers. So just his mental toughness and just listening to him talk with the confidence that he has, he's calling out big name fighters early on. You don't normally do that. And I think when he's calling them out, he's not calling them out trying to get his name out there, trying to be cocky. He truly believes it. And I think if they gave him an opportunity to fight some of those guys, I think he beats him.
All right, let's talk about a different kind of wrestling and the connection to what we're discussing with UFC, because four of the best WWE superstars here as we continue to discuss UFC 300. But listen, we've discussed this. There's a buzz in your locker room around the big events, the big fights. What is it about MMA that in your world, in this world, at WWE, that makes that connected feel?
I think that fighting is so intrinsic to what we as humans are that it's not even just our locker room. And obviously with what we do, it's all very related. And not to start a whole nother discussion, I've gone on and on about the relationship that professional wrestling and mixed martial arts have. But just as basic animals, fighting is so instinctive and like carnal to what we are that it immediately grabs someone. So I think when you get people that are athletes that learn techniques used in fighting, and we get a chance to watch somebody else do it as we're not a part of the show, and we can just be on the outside and we're not in it, you know? I think it's very, very compelling.
Obviously, I didn't fight, but I was an amateur wrestler in high school, and I would say it's the best thing I ever did was wrestling. There's a different level of respect I have for people who put their lives on the line in the cage. It really is just different. It's I think for us, the grind with wrestling, the mental toughness it takes is different. But the mental toughness it takes to fight, to be in the cage, I have so much respect for. The way these athletes prepare, the training, the weight cutting, is something that, for me, I struggle to fathom ever putting myself in that position. So I have always just carried an immense amount of respect for these athletes.
And of course, three of your colleagues have done that. And the connection you feel is?
Well, Shayna started to say it, but MMA currently, as we know it, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for professional wrestling. Conversely, the fun flip side of the coin is I know so many people that if MMA was a viable option like it is today to make a living and get paid, never would have got into professional wrestling.
Oh, interesting.
You might be one of them.
Yeah.
Honestly. That, you know, a guy like Ken Shamrock was a pro wrestler, maybe before he was a fighter, right? Ken went where the money was at the time. Look at him now. You know, a guy like Kurt Angle, I look at and I go, Kurt never would have been a professional wrestler. Kurt would have been scouted and almost drafted into MMA. A super gym would have found him, and
with his accolades, his amateur
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, go back to Bo Nickal.
Yeah.
Right. If MMA didn't exist as we know it today, look at all these guys that would be pro wrestlers.
He'd be in NXT right now.
I'm dead serious.
Yes.
You know,
We need
so
something.
as human beings, Shayna said it, it's in our DNA. When you're born, you start crying, you're communicating. Fighting is in our DNA, and to me, mixed martial arts is the ultimate test that you can put yourself through. I love hockey. I'm a huge hockey guy, love the culture. Hockey to me is a microcosm of life. You got a team, it's your family, somebody picks on your little brother, you drop the gloves, you give him a 1-2, you sit in the box for 5 minutes, you come back out, we're good? We're all good. Okay.
Let's play.
But it's very much a team sport, you know? Not one person can win a Stanley Cup. And MMA is a team sport in regards to your team helps you train, your team sharpens your skills. But when you're in the cage, you are by yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're having a bad time, maybe you can't even hear your coach anymore. It's sink or swim and it's survival, and it's 100% up to you. And that, to me, is romantic.
Bobby, how do you define the connection and the attraction from WWE world to UFC?
I think several different ways. One way I like to talk about is, and I say this and I say it very loosely, in order to make a babyface, you got to have a heel. And that's the same way in MMA. Some of these guys are starting to become stars, and some of these guys are trying to become stars. When you have that antagonist, when you have the good guy and the bad guy, and people are more drawn to it, it's still storylines. Every one of these guys, there's a storyline between it. See, we do storylines in our business, and their storylines are starting to develop in their business. That's why I think it's so similar. It's so parallel. So when we go through the card, it's like, you know, when you had a famous one that we all know, John Jones and Daniel Cormier. That was, man, that to me was pro wrestling. I was looking at it from pro wrestling eyes. but it was cool to see it in the cage. And I think it's still the same way. Connor always talks about it. You fight me, I'm going to make you famous, call off, and so that's what I like about it. I like the stories, because before when MMA, I was way back when it first started out, it was just people fighting. Remember? We were just fighting. It was backyard. It was like we were fighting and trying to make it bigger. And once it started taking on a little bit of the storylines and a bit of the characters, that's when MMA really started blowing up. So as we talk to these guys right now, we're talking about characters.
This is a fascinating conversation, and you guys are so impressive, by the way, with your fight IQs. It's off the charts, beyond impressive. But this should really be a fight party for UFC 300. You guys should be a fight party and a watch party here. This is what it really should be. I can only imagine. Yeah, just a watch party. I can only imagine. Let's get the contracts out right now. But I'd like to be the guy on the couch just listening to the four of you for what is being dubbed as the greatest UFC card in history, UFC 300. The WWE superstars cannot wait. It is coming your way on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, and we will see you then.